Our history is pretty missing and messy. No one actually knows where we came from or how we ended up here. But what we do know is that people have done some strange stuff. Just a few times ago, people really paid to see other people. Well, today, that would get you arrested instantly, and rightfully so. But back then, circus freaks were a real attraction, and people would travel foot-hurting distances just to see someone with a physical abnormality or deformity. So, join us for this video, as we look at the 15 bizarre circus freaks you'll never believe existed. Let's begin this list with number 15, George Williams. They called him Turtle Boy, but George Williams never saw himself that way. His arms and legs curved inward from birth, making walking slow and painful. But he found his own rhythm. He picked up the harmonica, then the flute, and let music speak what his body couldn't. On stage, he charmed audiences with soft tunes and gentle humor. People clapped. They called him brave. But when the applause ended, life didn't get easier. He was a black man performing in 19th century America, and that came with its own cages. He traveled from town to town, never settling, never quite safe. Still, he found work where others faded, performing at places like Huber's Dime Museum in New York. In 1920, he filed a rare lawsuit after tripping on a city sidewalk, one of the few times he asked for justice. After that, history grew quiet around him. But his music lingered in the spaces he left behind, soft as ever, refusing to disappear. Number 14, Lionel the Lion-Faced Man. Stefan Bobrowski never had a chance at anonymity. From head to toe, he was covered in 6 inches of thick golden blonde hair. Born in 1890 with hypertrichosis, he was quickly cast as something more myth than man. His mom, haunted by superstition, believed it was punishment. She'd seen a lion maul a man while pregnant. By 4, Stefan was handed over to a showman and renamed Lionel the Lion-Faced Man. For decades, he filled theaters from Europe to the US, people gawking at the blur between man and beast. But behind that curtain of hair was a fluent polyglot with kindness in his voice and a scholar's mind. He didn't roar. He spoke, gently and thoughtfully, disarming every stare with grace. In time, he left the circus and returned to Germany, where he died of a heart attack in 1932. The world labeled him an oddity, but Lionel was no monster, just a quiet soul buried under too much fur and too little understanding. Number 13, the Bearded Lady of Geneva. Josephine Boisdechaine carried herself with a calm grace that disarmed anyone expecting spectacle. Facial hair began forming when she was young, and instead of hiding it, she shaped it with intention. By 8, she had a soft beard. By her teens, she toured Europe beside her father, turning whispered curiosity into applause. Audiences arrived expecting shock but were met with elegance. Josephine dressed beautifully, moved with dignity, and refused to frame herself as a sideshow oddity. When she sculpted her beard to mirror Napoleon III's mustache during a performance, he laughed in delight and gifted her a diamond, an acknowledgement of charm rather than mockery. She later married Fortune Clofulia, a painter, adopting his name for her tours. With each appearance, she reclaimed the narrative around her body, choosing confidence over concealment. Josephine never apologized for how she looked. She refined it, shaped it, and carried it like art. Well, her story wasn't about tragedy, but self-possession. Number 12, Sia Khan. Sia never got to grow old. Somewhere in southern Iran, he started life like any other boy, quiet, unremarkable, just part of the land and the people around him. But after turning 6, something shifted. His bones stretched unnaturally, his skull ballooned, and soon his body could no longer hold itself up. His family, drowning in poverty, did what they thought they had to. They began showing him off. Crowds paid to stare. Doctors came to measure. Sia was eventually brought to Tehran and labeled with a name that would follow him forever: Proteus syndrome. His height crept past 8 feet. His head alone weighed over 13 pounds. He could barely lift it. In his final years, a doctor named Gorban moved him to Shiraz for care, but the damage was done. Pneumonia finished what his body had started. He was 25. Today, his skeleton stands in a display case. But the boy, gentle, tired, and aching, was never meant to live behind glass. Number 11. Ella Harper. Ella lived with a condition that bent her knees in reverse, making it painful to stand upright. Well, moving on all fours felt natural to her, even if it made strangers pause in shock. The circus didn't hesitate to capitalize on her posture, branding her the Camel Girl in 1886 as she became the star of W.H. Harris's nickel-plate circus. Her pitch card said she planned to quit performing and pursue an education, and she wasn't bluffing. Ella earned $200 a week, an incredible amount at the time, and saved every dollar with purpose. After her season in the spotlight, she stepped away from the circus, married a school teacher, and built a quiet life in Tennessee. She avoided publicity and let the world move on without her. By the time she passed in 1921, she had long since traded sawdust floors for a steady home. Ella never sought fame. She sought respect. Number 10. The Seal Boy. Stanislaus Barent never had arms, but he never needed sympathy either. Born with phocomelia, his limbs resembled small fins, but he moved through life with razor-sharp independence. In Pittsburgh, he built tools to shave, write, dress, and eat entirely on his own. Crowds came to see the Seal Boy, but what they witnessed was a man in control, poised, articulate, and calm. He spent decades headlining American sideshows, from Ringling Bros to Hubert's Museum, never once allowing pity to define him. Behind the curtain, he lived simply with a chimpanzee pal who once lunged at a drunk heckler to defend him. Stan wasn't just a performer. He was a quiet revolutionary. In 1972, he helped overturn a Florida law that banned disabled performers, then walked away from the stage for good. He never demanded applause, but his dignity made noise everywhere he went. Arms or not, CeeLo stood tall, his pride intact, his humanity untouchable. Number 9. The Human Unicorn. It looked fake. A grainy photograph of a man with a horn spiraling from the back of his skull. But it wasn't a trick. It was real. The man was Wang, a farmer from China. The photo, captured in the 1930s, wound up in the hands of a Russian banker who passed it to Robert Ripley. Ripley offered a reward to bring Wang to his Believe It or Not stage. But Wang was never seen again. There are no interviews or shows, just a haunting image of a quiet man who vanished as quickly as he appeared. Some said it was hardened keratin. Others called it a tumor gone rogue. But Wang never chased the stage, never sold his strangeness. While others built careers on being stared at, he left behind only a mystery. One photo turned him into a global myth. And just like that, he was gone, taking the truth with him and leaving only the bizarre legend. Number 8. Fakir Musafar. Roland Loomis lived the life he was told to, until he didn't. In his 30s, he shed that name and became Fakir Musafar, a man devoted to transforming pain into power. This wasn't a theater. He suspended himself from hooks, pierced his body with precision, and treated each act as sacred. He didn't perform stunts. He explored thresholds. Inspired by ancient rituals, Fakir believed in honoring the body through suffering, confronting fear, until it became something else. In the 1970s, he brought this philosophy to the public eye, blending art, endurance, and spiritual awakening in performances that left people speechless. Some called it bizarre. He called it body play, a way of reconnecting to something raw, primal, honest. He never chased fame, but artists, seekers, and body mod pioneers traced their paths back to him. Fakir didn't just alter his body, he redefined what it meant to live in one. In every single scar, there was intention. Number 7. The Mule-Faced Lady. Grace McDaniels never asked for mercy. Born in 1888 with a facial deformity doctors couldn't name, the world quickly gave her one: the mule-faced woman. It wasn't kind, but Grace didn't live for their approval. She joined the circus not to chase applause, but to earn a living, for herself and her son. Every show gave her something stable, predictable, a paycheck. The stares were constant. The whispers always arrived before the questions. But she endured, she married, she performed, she provided. Her son, born without her condition, spiraled into alcohol and crime, spending her earnings like they were his. She never retaliated, never complained. When asked about the gawking crowds, she simply said, "I don't need their pity. I just need their money." Grace worked until the end, passing away in 1958. The posters mocked her face, but they could never touch her spirit. She wasn't tragic. She was a human. Number 6. The Alligator Girl. Esther Parnell lived with ichthyosis, a condition that hardened and cracked her skin into patterns most people didn't understand. Instead of hiding, she stepped forward and performed as the Alligator Girl, later sharing the stage with her brother Bill as the Alligator Twins. They weren't trying to shock anyone. They were working, and they knew their value. Every stare had a ticket price. In 1947, Esther married a musician and welcomed her first child, balancing motherhood with the relentless travel of carnival life. Over the years, she raised 7 children on the road, acted in low-budget horror films, and kept performing long after other acts had faded from memory. She didn't soften her appearance or explain it away. She let the world adjust to her instead. When she passed in 2003, people remembered her not as a headline curiosity, but as a mother, a performer, and a lady who carried herself with grit, humor, and unapologetic presence. Number 5. Julia Pastrana. Julia's face never gave her a chance. Covered in thick hair with strikingly exaggerated features, she was born into a world unprepared to see her as human. She spoke multiple languages, sang beautifully, and radiated kindness. But all people saw was a sideshow act. Labeled the bearded lady and the ugliest woman alive, she was sold to the highest bidder, her own husband. Theodore Lent paraded her through Europe, turning her body into income and silencing the soul behind it. When she died after childbirth, Lent kept touring with her embalmed body. For over a century, she was passed from museum to museum, a woman reduced to an exhibit. Her story is almost too cruel to believe, but it happened. In 2013, after years of protest, her remains were finally returned to Mexico and buried with dignity. No stage or tickets, just silence. A peace she never had in life. And maybe now, somewhere, Julia is finally singing for herself. Number 4. Emma Leach. Emma never chased fame, yet her name ended up printed beside politicians and merchants in mid-1800s Boston. She stood only 22 inches tall, and that alone made her a subject of public fascination. Ames's almanac listed her measurements the way someone might diagram a piece of furniture, inch by inch, reducing her to a chart instead of a person. But near the bottom, one line broke through the noise. Emma refused to be examined. That single refusal carried more weight than every statistic around it. She couldn't control how her body was described or how strangers interpreted her existence. But she still drew a line where she could. At a time when women were rarely heard, and disabled women even less, her no echoed louder than the spectacle around her. Her portrait traveled, her measurements circulated, yet her boundaries stood firm. Emma didn't build a career in the spotlight. She simply defended her right to remain her own. Number 3, the Irish giant. Patrick Cotter O'Brien towered above nearly everyone born in his century, a man over 8 feet tall in a world built for half that. Promoters loved claiming he came from ancient kings, mixing myth with measurement to make crowds believe impossible things. Touring as the Bristol Giant, he traveled across Britain, leaning into the strange blend of admiration and unease that followed him. Money arrived quickly, but so did anxiety. Grave robbers hunted unusual bodies, feeding medical schools eager for specimens, and Patrick knew exactly what would happen to him once he died. Before his passing in 1806, he demanded an extreme burial, a deep pit, heavy lead ceiling, stone piled high, a plea to be left alone. Yet curiosity outlived him. Workers unearthed his coffin a century later, pulling his remains back into the light for study and photographs before burying him again. His boots now sit in a museum where you can see them. Number 2, Kitty Smith. Kitty Smith's life veered into darkness long before she ever stepped onto a stage. At 9, her father forced her arms against a hot stove, leaving burns so severe that surgeons had no choice but to amputate both limbs. She spent her childhood in an orphanage, quietly repeating the lie that it had been an accident. Court records told the truth. Her father walked free. Kitty refused to let cruelty define her future. She taught herself to write, sew, and paint, using only her feet, skills she sharpened with quiet determination. At 18, she printed her own autobiography and sold it door to door for 25 cents, eventually earning over $35,000, an extraordinary sum for a disabled woman of her era. She later joined a sideshow not for applause, but for independence. Crowds stared at what she could do without hands. She used her feet to build a life they couldn't imagine. Kitty didn't chase sympathy. She earned respect the very hard way. Number 1, the double-bodied boys. In a quiet corner of rural Italy, Giacomo and Giovanni Battista Tocci came into the world conjoined at the spine. 2 torsos, 4 arms, 2 hearts, and only 1 set of legs. Doctors didn't expect them to last the year. Instead, they grew up into men with sharp minds and strong tempers. Their father, chasing fame and money, paraded them through Europe and eventually to the US, where they made a fortune on stage. Giacomo was sociable, drank mineral water, and loved to speak. Giovanni was quieter, drank beer, and let his brother do the talking, until fists flew during arguments. They never walked, always carried. Despite the spotlight, they learned multiple languages and stayed sharp. In 1897, they vanished from the public eye, retreating to a villa in Venice. Some said they married sisters. Others claimed they became reclusive. Their death is still debated. But one thing's certain, they were unique. If you enjoyed this, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for hanging with us, and we'll see you soon.